Welcome to the ET335 binary counter lab demonstration, the long version part B. Okay, I'm back to our multi-sim and we have our divide by 8. This is divide by 2, next is 4, and we're going to make a divide by 8. And let's go ahead and I'm going to copy and paste. We may need a little more room there. Let's go ahead and copy and paste this one and see if it'll behave itself. Kinda. We'll clean it up over here. Okay, let's get rid of our clock. Anything else that stragglers? Yep. Let's get rid of him. And him. Oops. There we go. Let's go big. Move up. All right, let's see. Yeah, that looks good. Let's go ahead and take our cue to our clock. And let's copy and paste this and see what we do. Okay, that just looks pretty good. Okay, let's bring it down a little bit. I want to drag this over. And that's beautiful. And let's go ahead and we're going to take our output of 2Q and go into our clock one of our second IC. And let's see, VCs. I think these aren't going to make any difference. So let's grab our scopes. And I'll be back. Okay, back to multi-sim. Let's go ahead and add our oscilloscopes. So we're going to do 2 of our Tektronix. Let's go ahead and hook up our grounds. All right, channel 1 is going to go to our first clock. Channel 2 is going to go to our first Q. Channel 3 is going to go to our second Q, and 4 is going to go to our last Q. Good, and I'm not going to change the colors on those on this. So let's go to clock. Go to 2, which would be Q1, 3 to Q2, and then 4 to Q3, which is going to be our second IC. Good. Okay, so first thing I do is we're going to change our seconds to division so we can see it. And let's go ahead and set everything to 5 volts. And since we're using green, we're going to need to set him to. Good. And actually that looks fairly reasonable. Let's go ahead and move our green all the way to the bottom. And let's move our magenta down. And let's move our blue up. Good. And we need to trigger it so we could see it. So we're going to go to our trigger menu. And again, we need the trigger on the slowest channel. So let's go ahead and go to channel 4. We have the green arrow there. And that's actually looking pretty good. So let's go to single sequence. And that's good.
That's our output. Here we have the output of our Tektronix scope in the waveform or our divide by 8. And over here we see that we have the trigger arrow, and it's triggered off of the slowest channel. Here's the beginning of the trigger, and we use the falling edge on our trigger. So let's go ahead and go through the count here. So there's 0, 0, 0, so we have a 0. We have a 1, 0, 0, which is going to be a 1. We have a 0, 1, 0, which is going to be a 2. Then we have a 1, 1, 0, which is a 3. And then we have a 1, 0, 0, which is a 4. And then we have 1, 0, 1, which is a 5. And then we have a 1, 1, 0, which is a 6. And we have a 1, 1, 1, which is a 7. And it resets at 8. So it's a divide by 8, count 0 to 7.
Okay, let's start up our diagram here, and let's do some oscilloscope work. So we're going to turn it on, and the first channel we're going to look at is channel 1. Let's go ahead and go to 5 volts. Spread our timing out so we can see them. And first thing we want to do is trigger on the slowest one. Since we only have one channel, let's just go ahead and trigger on channel 1. Okay, good, auto coupling, that's good. So now what we're going to do is do our trigger level. And what we want to do when we trigger is have the yellow arrow, channel 1, pointed to channel 1 to lock it. So let's turn on channel 2, bring it down to 5 volts, and let's move him down. And let's move yellow up. The other up. There we go. And let's move channel 2 up. Okay, see how it's out of sync? We can't see it, so we need to trigger off of channel 2. So we're going to go back to trigger menu, and we're going to go to channel 2, which is our slowest one out of the two. So now they're both locked. Okay. And let's open up, turn on channel 3, bring it down to 5 volts, and let's position it down. Good. And it's kind of a latch, but what we should be doing is going to our, and changing our lock to channel 3. Good. So let's go to channel 4. And let's get him to 5 volts. Good. And let's move him down. And he is not locked at all. Okay. So let's go to channel 3. Channel 4, excuse me. And let's go ahead and move that up. And we should be locked on all of them. And it is not. Let's go ahead and change our time delay, see if we can, there we go. And it's locked now. And we have it on rising edge, and you can see that we are triggering off our rising edge right here. Okay, so now what we can do, let's go ahead and turn this off. Let's take our trigger menu, our trigger, and let's run it off our last channel. Okay, and how about we do this? Let's break, and hang on a second. Let's go ahead and not use 4, but we're going to use our trigger menu, our trigger input. And let's go ahead and start it again, and it should lock lose lock, and it did. But if we go to our trigger menu and go to external trigger, right there, now it's locked again. So this external trigger will allow us to trigger our display wherever we want it. Back in the old days, we would not have 4 channels. We'd have 2 channels, and we would use our trigger in order to trigger off the slowest one, which would have been the green channel here, which didn't exist. So the trigger is a way to lock our display. On a counter would be our slowest, but we could utilize our external trigger to trigger on certain events and then lock that in place. And that's our external trigger.